Well, it's week 6, and guys, I'm really sorry that I missed you at noon. I was working on chapter 6 for you guys, and I looked up and it was 12:30. I'm like, oh no, I can't believe I just did that. It happens, but thank you for joining right now. I see a couple of you are starting to join right in. So this is week 6, and we're on chapter 5. And chapter 5 is pretty interesting. It's about cells and cell biology. And in a lot of typical cell biology classes or intro classes, you start learning cells by memorizing the organelles like chloroplast and mitochondria. Those would be our energy converting organelles. Excuse me, I'm drinking some soda here. And then you might learn the endomembrane system, and you're going to learn about the cell nucleus and the endoplasmic reticulum. What are the other ones here? The Golgi bodies, the lysosomes, the various transport vesicles, vacuoles, and then you might learn about peroxisomes, right? So these are the things that we typically learn about in cell biology, along with the cytoskeleton, which includes microtubules, actin filaments, and keratin fibers. And you often get a picture of a plant cell and say, hey, what's the difference between these two? Yeah, that's kind of fun, but the reality is we tend to gloss over the fact that there are these things called the prokaryotic cells, and they might say, well, prokaryotic cells are these smaller, simpler cells, and they're often considered primitive. They are not. Bacteria and archaeans represent 2 domains of life. There's 3 domains of life. There's eukaryotes, which include all plants, animals, fungus, and anything that's made of a eukaryotic cell that has a nucleus in it. And then the other 2 domains, we've got bacteria and archaeans. And these prokaryotes are incredibly diverse. And in fact, they were the first cells on the planet. They have been around for almost 4 billion years. They have been evolving. Some of them have quick generation times of like 20 minutes. So they evolve rapidly. And in fact, prokaryotes have evolved almost all the metabolic pathways used by eukaryotes. Cellular respiration, the ability to breathe in oxygen, to break down organic molecules, make a lot of ATP. That's cellular respiration. No animal evolved that. That's actually done by mitochondria. Mitochondria were once free-living bacteria. Photosynthesis. No plant ever evolved photosynthesis. Photosynthesis was once again evolved by bacteria called cyanobacteria, and it was acquired by plants. Krebs cycle, something we'll learn in chapter 7. Nope, all of that was evolved by prokaryotes. And prokaryotes are amazing, right? Like they can live in water just boiling. No, seriously, they can live in boiling water. It's amazing. And in fact, there's this stuff called Taq polymerase, which we use to sequence DNA that was extracted from these bacteria living in really warm waters. And people made hundreds of millions of dollars off of that. But bacteria can also live in super cold environments. Bacteria can live on battery acid. Isn't that crazy? Bacteria can live in stuff that's as alkaline as your oven cleaner. So bacteria everywhere. And in fact, they live on, bacteria and archaeans, prokaryotes, they live frozen in Antarctic rocks, right? At the bottom of the world, it's like minus 100 degrees. It's so dry down there that there's no glaciers. The water just goes from solid to gas. And guess what? There's bacteria down there living inside the rocks, extracting energy from the rocks. They're called lithoautotrophs. There are bacteria that live in the bottom of the ocean, and I'm not talking about at the bottom where you get the bottom of the ocean where the water ends and then the crust begins. I'm talking about 2 miles deep. Let's hit the bottom and let's go another half mile down. You find bacteria. And if you're sitting here if you're in Albuquerque, oh man, you have bacteria thousands of feet deep. And in fact, in a lot of places in the world, there's bacteria living far below the surface of the planet. So bacteria and these archaeans are incredibly diverse. They are not primitive. And that's a big point that I want everybody to get. But what most of us, when we start thinking about cell biology in class, we don't study a lot of the prokaryotes, although I put a bunch into the chapter because I think their diversity is very important. we start talking about the eukaryotic cells. Now, eukaryotic cells are they're a chimera, right? They're these two entities that merged to form one. And what happened about 2 billion years ago or so? Well, let's go back even further. I like going back deep time. 3 billion years ago, cyanobacteria evolved photosynthesis, the ability to use sunlight to take carbon dioxide and water and make a carbohydrate out of that, and then as a byproduct releases oxygen. So for about 1 million years, oxygen was pumped into the atmosphere of the Earth, and that was bad for a lot of life. I mean, you and I, we need oxygen to breathe, but oxygen's reactive. So eventually what happened was these bacteria evolved the ability to use oxygen for cellular respiration. And what they really did is they stuck some hydrogens on there, take oxygen, add some hydrogen, get water, right? But they used that electronegativity of oxygen to basically make a lot more ATP. So life became way more efficient. Then these aerobically respiring bacteria, what they did is they merged with a archaean. So you got a bacteria and archaean, two domains of life together, and that began the evolution of the eukaryotic cell. So it was called endosymbiosis, and it was not one cell engulfing another. I've got several videos on that, but that led to the first major restructuring of cellular structure in 2 billion years. So when we think about cells, we often think of eukaryotic cells, where you've got these endomembrane systems, and we define typically, or classically, I should say, eukaryotic cells by having a cell nucleus, which is a membrane housing all the DNA. From an evolutionary point of view, it's really the mitochondria, right? The mitochondria came first, then the cell nucleus. So now what's interesting about that is that eukaryotic cells, you, me, plants, and fungus, at the cellular level, we're pretty similar. Unlike bacteria, we're pretty similar. I mean, all life share similarities, but we're pretty similar. You are to a plant cell. It's kind of wild. There's some differences, of course, but we all make our DNA. We all make our proteins using ribosomes. We all use messenger RNA to carry the information from the DNA to the ribosomes. And then eukaryotic cells, they have these internal membranes. They're called organelles, or the little organs, membrane-bound structures that carry out all the functions of the cell. And one of those is they make proteins to be exported outside the cell. They make proteins to be embedded in other membranes, or they make proteins that might find themselves inside of another organelle, and they'll make them through the endomembrane system. And the way a plant makes a protein to be exported outside the cell, basically the same way our cells do it. It's amazing. So I have a podcast on that. I think I called it Eating Pizza, Aging, and our Cellular Organelles. Like, what in the world does all that have to do in common? But the idea is your saliva. I just ate some pizza. Yes, I know. I just ate pizza. I love pizza. But I just had some, and I could smell it cooking in the oven, right? And started to salivate like I always do when I smell pizza. But our saliva has this enzyme called amylase in it. And that amylase, is a protein enzyme. It's made in a ribosome inside of a cell. So in that podcast, I talk about how our bodies make amylase, or how our cells make amylase, and then export it outside the cell. Kind of cool stuff. The other thing, about studying cell biology is not only can we understand how our cells function making proteins, but we can also start to understand things like aging. You're probably going, why in the world, I'm memorizing all these parts, I'm memorizing this endomembrane system. The main point here is this. You don't have to sit down and memorize it for this class because, well, you go to take a test, you can look all these questions up. You have to do a little bit of memorization, of course, for the quizzes. But you might ask yourself, why do we care about memorizing what a lysosome does? Well, think about it this way. It's really cool. Somebody years ago, decades ago, invented an electron microscope, took a picture of a cell and said, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff in here. What are all these things doing? And then people spend decades of their life figuring out how proteins get folded inside the endoplasmic reticulum, and then how it gets packaged up and sent outside the cell. And then, for me, I'm always, as I get older, I think about aging. Like the gray beard, it's totally gray. Oh yeah, I'm totally bald too, right? And as you age, you notice changes in your body, and it sucks. Yeah, I wish I had my 23-year-old body. Tell me, I really wish I had it. I used to power lift. Those days are over. They're gone. I lift 135 on bench press now, and that's all I bench. I just do it for reps. That used to be my warm up. That's part of the aging process, right? Why does our bodies senesce? Why do they grow old? And understanding how our organelles function at the cellular level is an important part of understanding age. Aging is a lot of things. There's a lot of changes that take place throughout our lives, from changes to our DNA to changes to our organelles. And of course, one of them that we'll talk about in the next few chapters is oxidative damage. That adds up over time, where your proteins don't work as well, your membranes don't work as well, your mitochondria don't work as well. But one thing that we can talk about with our organelles, and specifically, let's talk about the endomembrane system. We have these called lysosomes. Lys means to split, some means body. So lysosomes are much like your stomach, right? You got your stomach, it houses all these digestive enzymes, really low pH. And the idea is you eat food. I just ate my pizza. It's in there doing some chemical breaking down. That's part of the digestion of it. But it's got all these enzymes. I don't want them in my body because it will just wreak havoc on my body. So a cell has a lysosome. It's like our stomach. It carries these digestive enzymes, right? And so cells, they can engulf other smaller cells. They can engulf food particles. And when they do, they'll engulf it by pinching off a piece of their membrane in the form of food vacuole. And then what will happen is it'll merge with that lysosome, and that lysosome will release those digestive enzymes in there and start to break that material down. And then that's pretty cool. But for the aging part of it, all of our organelles, like our body, as they grow older, they become less functional. I know, pretty wild, isn't it? They become less functional. So what the lysosomes do is called autophagy. Auto means self, phagy means eating. So our lysosomes start to turn over our organelles, including the mitochondria. And what happens as we age, you know it, well, maybe you don't. You guys are kind of young, at least a lot of you are. You start running out of energy. You don't have the energy you used to have as you're older. And you can see this. Look at a puppy. Look at an old dog. Puppies are like just running around everywhere. Small kids, they just run and 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 run. And by the time you're a grandparent, I'm not a grandparent yet. I got a few years. My daughter's only 2.5, so long time. But my parents are in their 70s. They just don't have the energy they used to. And part of that reason is because their mitochondria are accumulating these small changes over time. They're becoming less efficient, and the lysosomes are not turning over those mitochondria as quickly. So my parent cells are building up these less efficient mitochondria. They run out of energy. They have less energy than they used to have. You have less energy, you do less work. You don't exercise as much, you lose muscle mass. And the downward spiral, right, of aging. So one of the really cool things we've learned is how we can reset the clock on our cells. And one of those is to make the lysosomes start eating the older mitochondria, pick up that rate again, and we can start to reset some of the age of these cells, which is kind of cool. All right. So I hope that gives you some examples of why the endomembrane system is important. So if anybody has any questions, be sure to hit me up on live chat. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Now I'm going to segue into the science and digital literacy here. I am doing an SDL, and I don't remember you saying if the Credible Hawk was a more reliable website. When I try to look up the people who published the article, other people pop up. Okay, Credible Hawk. He's awesome. He's great. Yeah, I even learned from the Credible Hawk. He was actually a former student of mine. He's got an enormous following of almost 300,000 people. He is, and his name goes, credible. He is one of the most accurate places on the web for information. So there's a hint. If I ever put him up as a correct, as a scientifically accurate website, you automatically know it's him, but you better understand why. And let's talk about some of the science and digital literacies. I'm going to pull them up here really quick. I've been getting a lot of questions about the science and digital literacy. So about the numbers 2, 3, and 4. Organic, conventionally grown foods. Is aspartame safe, and does detox work? Now, let's actually go with the artificial sweetener, aspartame. Most, like over half the class, missed that one. Granted, that was hard. The U.S. right to know looked incredibly accurate. It looked like it was everything science, except for one problem. It has the illusion of being the right answer, but it is not at all. It was the other website that was accurate. It was science-based medicine. And you'll find that science-based medicine is an incredibly good resource. So whenever you want to know information about something in your life, science-based medicine is a great place to go. The problem with the U.S. right to know is that it's a lot more fear-mongering, and they pull information out of context. And by pulling stuff out of context, it looks like they're supporting a position. So this idea that this artificial sweetener aspartame causes neurological problems, oh, I forgot all the other ones, cancer, blah, 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 all these problems. No, that's not true. Aspartame is nothing more than a dipeptide. It's 2 amino acids, phenylalanine and aspartic acid. They hit your stomach, they split into 2, they form a little bit of methanol. I get more methanol in a glass of orange juice or eating fruit than I do from drinking aspartame. So here's my Diet Pepsi right here. Oh, wait. I guess it's football season. I wonder where I graduated from. So because aspartame hits your stomach, splits into 2 amino acids, my question is to stuff like right to know, saying it's causing all these problems like cancer, cognitive decline. Can you please explain to me how aspartic acid and phenylalanine, 2 of the 20 amino acids our bodies use to make proteins, including phenylalanine, which is a essential amino acid, meaning our body has to have it and can't make it, how does that cause cancer? How does that cause all these health problems? So they throw all this stuff out there, and it's just completely wrong. So science-based medicine is the correct one on that one. And the other thing also about aspartame that goes with anything, am I going to go like consume a pound of aspartame a day? No, because one important point to always remember is that anything can be toxic to your body in large enough doses. So let's go to the next one. There's another one on here I think is coming up. Oh, it's this week. Is the herbicide Roundup bad for the gut microbiome? And of course, I already told you which one was the right one, right? U.S. Natural News, ugh, natural news, garbage. It's nothing more than pseudoscience and people peddling products, and it's all alarmist. They don't know anything about basic chemistry, and they don't know anything about toxicology either. Glyphosate, if you're not familiar with it, is the active ingredient in Roundup. Roundup is an herbicide. It's a brilliant herbicide made by Monsanto. And unfortunately, Monsanto has been completely demonized in our world. Now, I'm not saying that they're a great organization, a great company, but they definitely don't deserve everything, all the bad press they've earned. But glyphosate basically interferes with the plant's ability to do photosynthesis. I don't do photosynthesis. Not going to have a huge effect on me. So I don't care one bit if I eat organic or non-organic food. I go with whatever is cheaper. I go eat fresh fruits and vegetables. I am not worried about glyphosate residues on my food. I don't care. The reason why I don't care is because the amount that I get will have no effect on my body. That is important. The toxin is in the dose. Now, you'll get somebody from Natural News or some organic farmer, and they'll say, well, if it's so non-toxic, why don't you go drink some? No, that would be bad. So is drinking 6 liters of water in an hour. You'll die. Well, you have a 50% chance of dying. I do not like those odds. Don't go chug a bunch of water. You can die of hyponatremia. So even too much water can kill you. That is an important point. So glyphosate in your foods, who cares? Now, if you're spraying Roundup on plants every day and bathing in it, yeah, it might actually cause cancer, but not the amount that I get in my produce. So I don't bother with organic food. And I'll be honest with you, I was full bore onto, I was fully into the organic food stuff. And it was another colleague of mine from C&M and a former lab member of mine, Sierra Nets, if anybody knows, said, Tom, you're wasting your money. I think, what, Sierra? What do you mean I'm wasting? She goes, go look it up. You're a scientist. Just go do your own research. I did my own research. I was duped. I wasted so much money for years worrying about if I was eating organic or not, so I don't care. And you would hear about the dirty dozen with all the pesticide residues, in small amounts. We just don't care. And that's an important point. Okay. So as we go on here, does anybody have any questions for me? Okay, I was looking at the other science and digital literacy here. Okay, I think we did that. The other one was Vanny Harry, detox work. That's a food babe. I pick on her too. She is clearly there to sell a product. She does not know basic science. She scares you into thinking these things are happening. And oh, here's my solution to it. Let me address detoxification really quick. Detox is an actual medical procedure. If you overdose on alcohol, drugs, or some other poisons, you get admitted to the hospital, and they have a specific routine and specific things they give you to detox. And I'm no doctor, so I don't know exactly what detox is, what they do, but I know it's an actual medical practice. Your body, thinking that you're eating unhealthy or you're getting toxins in the body, that sounds like a South Park episode. Yeah, from the very first few seasons, that was a South Park episode where they went to this woman named Misinformation. Yeah, it actually had Cheech and Chong in it, which is pretty funny. Got them back together for the time. But this idea of detox is, oh, I'm eating these vegetables and they've got pesticides in them, and I'm getting all these toxins in my body. And I love what Kyle and Stan were like, toxins? What are these toxins you're talking about? And the woman, Misinformation, goes, here, take this herbal remedy. Now he's going to get sicker before he gets better. Well, it turned out the kid had a kidney infection, right? So he's just getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And she goes, oh, but that's part of the detoxing process. No, that's bullcrap. This idea that you can detox your body, no way. Your liver and your kidneys break down, or your liver breaks down molecules in your body, including things like alcohol, and other types of drugs and poisons. And if you take them, and like I said, if you get alcohol in small amounts, your body can naturally break it down if you produce alcohol dehydrogenase. Some people don't produce alcohol dehydrogenase. You have no ability to really drink alcohol. But that's how your body breaks down things inside your body. It's also got other ways of taking poisons and changing them chemically by making them more hydrophilic. They make them more water soluble, and then your kidneys will strain this out and pee it out. Just writing on that. We're talking about next week is cellular membranes, energy and transport. And I'm actually in a major rewrite of this chapter. It's kind of fun. That's why it's not available yet, but I'm trying to make it a little bit more interesting to read. Okay, guys, so I will see you on YouTube again next week, and I'll probably try to do one more Zoom meeting if anybody wants to meet me specifically. All right, next week.